Hello, my name is Chris. I am one of the race directors for the BB Ultra, and the purpose of this presentation is to go through some of the logistics for the race, the mandatory kit list, and to discuss the route in a bit of detail, as well as give some responses to some frequently asked questions that we have. So, starting with the logistics, on the logistics page of the website, you can see that the registration for the event opens the Friday before. That's the evening before the race, and that opens at 4 p.m. and shuts at 9:30 p.m. So that'll be at Race HQ, which is also the finish line of the race, and that's in Talibont at the Henderson Village Hall. So it's important that you're there to get yourself registered for the race, get your T-shirt if you've ordered one, and to make sure that your mandatory kit list has been confirmed and checked. We'll go through the details of that shortly. Then after you have registered, then you can go on to your accommodation wherever you're staying for the night, and then you need to be back in for 5:30 in the morning to have your GPS tracker issued. After that's done, the race briefing will begin by 6:30, and we will then get everyone onto the buses by 7 a.m. By the time we've driven everybody around, got everyone off the buses, then the race will due to start at 8:30 a.m. And then there's a series of cut-offs at the checkpoints, but we'll go through what those mean shortly when we discuss the route. And yeah, just making sure that you have booked your accommodation in advance. Most of these campsites book up pretty early, so it's worth, if you haven't done that already, to make sure you've booked somewhere in the vicinity unless you live locally. But it is essential that everybody registers the evening before and is there again first thing in the morning to have your trackers issued and receive the race briefing. And everyone needs to be on the bus by 7, and everyone goes together. Again, even if you're local, we still need you on the bus so we can assure that everyone is at the start line at the same time, ready to start. So that's the basics of the logistics. If you have any issues getting to the registration office on the Friday evening, if there's any emergencies or delays, then please give us a call. Our email address and telephone numbers will be in the information packs that have been sent out to you, or contact us through social media, whichever is easiest. But yeah, please let us know if you're unable to make that Friday evening, and we'll see what we can do. But certainly aim for getting everything done by Friday evening. Mandatory kit. So this is equipment that you will have to present at registration on the Friday evening, and it's important that you have everything on this list. If you do not have all this equipment, then you will not be allowed to participate in the race. And there will also be spot checks during the race to make sure you're still carrying it all, particularly if your bag is looking a little bit light. This equipment is essential safety equipment, and we deem this as a necessity. So we take it very seriously, and there won't be any exceptions. But this is a minimum, so you may very well want to carry more than this, but this is the absolute minimum to keep you able to survive a period of time on the hill and to keep yourself comfortable as well. So talking through the items, starting with a base layer, that's something that is good at wicking moisture away from your skin. If you use something like cotton, then that doesn't do that very particularly well. So once you get wet from sweat or any kind of precipitation, then it will stay wet and it will cool you quicker than you would like it to. So we recommend some kind of synthetic material that you have next to your skin that will wick any moisture away as well as keep you warm. The GPS tracker, you'll be issued that on the morning of the race, so on Saturday morning. So you don't need to worry about providing that. That's something that we provide for you. The GPX file of the route, either on your phone, smartwatch, or dedicated device. So we'll need to see that you've got that downloaded onto whatever form of navigation device you choose to use. And then whatever device you use, you need to make sure you have a battery pack and a cable, importantly, that will charge that, and again we want to see that that battery pack is fully charged and able to connect to the device that you're using. I would recommend it's a battery pack that would allow for at least 2 full charges to last the day. So a method of navigating related to above, you can take a map and compass on top of that. You're more than welcome to, but you must have some kind of digital device to navigate with as well as a backup, at least if you want to use map and compass, that's okay. But something like Outdoor Active is particularly good, or you may choose some kind of dedicated watch like a Garmin or a handheld device. We then recommend trail shoes. So with that, if you decide you're going to be walking it quickly rather than running, then light walking shoes is totally acceptable, but something that's got some kind of tread on it and not just a typical trainer for street use or road running. Rucksack to carry it all in. Again, it's up to you on the size and comfort. That's a very individual choice, as long as it's big enough to carry everything that you need to take, and it's up to you. A waterproof jacket with tape seams, so it's important that you check that your jacket is taped so that it's going to withstand and work as a water barrier. If you are going to be moving quick and it's going to be warm, then having something that's breathable as well will help reduce the amount of moisture build up on the inside of the jacket. So some kind of warm jacket as to act as a mid layer that's going to give you extra warmth if you slow down or have to stop if you're injured and need to wait for help, or just going to be moving slower. Then having that extra layer will keep you warmer. Some kind of hydration system. It can be a bladder, bottles, but whatever you choose, it needs to be a minimum of 1 litre capacity. That is a minimum. We recommend you probably go for 1.5 litres, maybe 2. And if it's a hot day, then certainly you would probably wanting to carry close to 2 litres, if not more. Please remember that from the start of the race to checkpoint 1 is 18 kilometres with a fair amount of height gain and descent. So make sure you've got plenty of water for that. When you get to the checkpoints and our aid stations, there will be plenty of drinking water to refill with, so you don't need to carry enough water for the entire race, just to get between checkpoints. But just keep in mind that a first checkpoint is quite a way in, and you can get quite thirsty if you don't carry enough water. So then you need to carry a survival bag. This needs to be a bag, not a blanket. So again, check that you have that, and it's not just like one of those silver space blanket type things, which are quite light but won't necessarily seal you in, particularly in bad weather, or if it's wet underneath you. You want something that's going to be watertight and keep everything, all the warmth in and all the wet and cold out. So yeah, make sure you have that, and some kind of basic first aid, minimum for wound dressing, and a selection of blister plasters. After that, it's up to you what you want to carry. If you know you're prone to getting blisters, then you might want to carry some Compeeds or other blister kits. And any personal medication that you need, then please carry that as well. You need to carry some kind of whistle, a head torch that's fully charged, and again, it's probably good to maybe carry a cable if it's a rechargeable type, so you can use your battery pack if you did end up being out for longer than expected. But it is middle of summer, so it's not going to be getting dark till quite late, so it would be more for an emergency use, but we want to make sure it's charged and is able to function. Nutrition. It's important that you carry the vast majority of your calorie requirements for the day. We do have a lot of food at the checkpoints, but it's important that you have anything particular that you're prone to wanting to have during the day that's worth bringing. So your own electrolytes would be good to carry. We do carry sort of a variety of stuff, but we can't guarantee exact amounts at the aid station. So if it's particularly essential to you, then make sure you carry it. But there will be plenty of variety and options at all the checkpoints, particularly checkpoint 2, where there will be certainly more hot food, more substantial calorie intake available there. And then your mobile phone. So if you're using your watch to navigate with, then that means your phone can be fully charged, left there for an emergency, which is what we would prefer, is that your phone is fully charged, not being used, other than maybe for the odd photograph, but so that there's charge there available to make a phone call if you need help, or for us to contact you if we need to whilst you're out on the hill. So that's the mandatory kit. Talking about the logistics and accommodation. So safety, it's paramount that obviously that you look after yourselves whilst on the hill. And the most important rule is to be bothered. So if something isn't going well, it's not going to fix itself. So if you find a hot spot on your foot, it's not going to get better as the day goes on. It's going to get worse. So it's worth stopping, taking 5 minutes, get a Compeed on it, or change your socks if they're wet, whatever it might be. And if it's coming down to calorie intake, if you're getting hungry, then it's probably also important to stop and get some food in, drink plenty, and not just get too carried away on just keeping running, keeping moving. It's worth to invest time to fix and prevent problems that then allow you to finish, because you may end up paying a price earlier on in the race that you just can't compensate for at the end. So yeah, be bothered is the most important thing. And you'll have mobile reception for most of the race. There will be sections where there isn't any. The GPS trackers are fitted with an SOS button, which will demonstrate in the race briefing on the day how to use. It's pretty simple. So you have the option to press that, but it does require some kind of mobile phone reception for that to get through. But yeah, so calling us is also an option if you need it. Speaking to other racers and participants who then maybe might be able to pass that message on. We've got mountain leaders on all of the checkpoints who are kitted up ready to head into the hill if required. We've got physios as well, plus other transport to help people if they need any emergency evacuation. So it's important to look after each other as well. If you see someone that looks like they're in trouble, then please stop and ask, talk to them, talk to each other. I know it's a race, but most important is that everyone finishes and enjoys themselves and is safe. Also, when it comes to safety, the checkpoint leaders will basically be in charge of deciding if they think someone is or isn't capable of carrying on. So if they think you are too exhausted to carry on safely, then they will withdraw you from the race, and that decision will be final with them. So let's look at how to get the GPX file. So we'll email that to you, but it's basically on the Outdoor Active website. You can see here, all you got to do is search BB Ultra and then the year, and that'll be the up-to-date route, and then you can click on that, and you've got options here to download the route. You can see here, you can get the GPX file. We'll also email that to you. So if you're using a different device like a Garmin, then you can import that file directly in and follow it that way. But if you're using, if you download the app and you're going to use a phone, or you may use a spare phone, if you've got a second smartphone, then you could use that and then keep your main phone for emergency use. And this way you can download the app onto your device. I will be producing a video just on how to do that. So if you know how to do it now, that's great, and we'll move on. But if you're not quite sure and you're going to use Outdoor Active or your Garmin, then either investigate that yourselves or look out for our video on how to do that. But basically once you've got that, you'll have it on the screen. Now, depending on what version of Outdoor Active you use, if you're using the free version, that would give you enough information, but you'll have a map that looks a bit like this. Okay, so if you wanted it to be looking like an OS map, then showing the 1 to 50 and then 1 to 25, then it is a paid subscription with Outdoor Active. But yeah, to go into the overview here, you can see start point, finish point. So finishes in Talibon in the Henderson Hall in the village there, and that's where everyone will meet for registration, race briefing, and then the buses will set off in the morning at 7, drive everyone over to the start line, and then the race will start here at 8:30. And you can see a profile underneath here of the height gain and loss, which is, 55k may not be too far for you, but if you've not done a mountain race before, the ascent will certainly add a different dimension, which isn't to be taken too lightly. So starting the beginning of the race, here at the Black Mountain car park, you can see that it's heading south east up onto the first mountain, and it's lovely gentle running across the tops here. As you come down here, thing to be on the lookout for here where it changes direction is there's a bit of a limestone pavement that works its way up. You can just sort of see the crag here, and an easy mistake to make is there's a bit of a sort of sheep track which contours along the base of that steep outcrop, and then the outcrop gets bigger, and then by the time you kind of realize that you're stuck underneath, it's kind of too late and you end up kind of backtrack. So when you get to the beginning of this outcrop, you'll see a big limestone pavement, quite flat ground, quite rocky but flat. If you just sort of immediately pull up onto the side of that, onto the east side, then going underfoot will be much easier, and you haven't got to try and cross this crag here. We will be tracking you with the GPS as you're going, so we'll be able to see where you are. If we see people taking shortcuts, then we will be introducing time penalties, which will be the time you've saved multiplied by a random number times the age of my cat in dog years, and divided by 3 times 12, and that will be roughly the number I'll come up with. So basically it's not worth taking any shortcuts because it won't pay off. So as you could see here, you could cut this corner to try and save some ground, but it will add a lot of discomfort under your feet because it's quite boggy through here. So it's definitely easier running to follow the track we've laid out. If you make small deviations, it's not a problem, but if we see that you've clearly cut off a corner or missed a peak out, then then that will be taken into consideration. Now, a serious objective risk here is this cliff edge. You can see the contours are very close together here. On a clear day, then without any wind, it's perfectly safe. There's a big path. There's no need to be near the edge. No need to be taking selfies on the edge there. If the visibility is poor and the wind is blowing certainly from the south, then just give it a bit of a berth. Make sure you're a good sort of 20 meters to the south of this, and just stay away from the edge. And an example here, if you say get to this point here and accidentally take this path because it's better defined than the one marked here, and find yourself going out to this spur and then back again, you won't receive a time penalty because you've already introduced it for yourself. So if you go wrong by accident and go too far, you're not going to get a time penalty on top of that. It's only if you're trying to take a shortcut. When you're coming along here, the path isn't initially that obvious underfoot, but again, if you just sort of keep an eye on your little blue dot in relation to the path that's marked, then that'll keep you heading in the right direction. And then coming off the top of Van Brughenyog, it can be quite steep coming down here, particularly this section, so a lot of care is required. It's quite heavy on your knees, so hammering that too hard you might well pay for later on. So particularly if it's wet, take your time coming down here. The path leaving the head of the lake here is again pretty poorly defined to begin with, but then as you come down it becomes better defined, and then heads down to this road here. It's a very quiet road. Now there is also, as you can see here, a river to cross. The purple line marks generally where we cross it. However, we will have a member of staff there and they will advise as to where it's best to cross. And if there is heavy rainfall or some kind of flash flood, we may well close that section of the crossing and redirect you upstream, back up to the road and crossing much higher up if it's deemed unsafe to cross at this point here. After that, and then may well, if it's a hot day, we may well have some water there available before it's a small slap over the hill here to get to checkpoint 1, but yeah, that may well be available for any hot conditions. So here's checkpoint 1. So again, we're sort of 18k into the race at this point, so a significant amount of distance is under to your back. And then when you're leaving the section here, there's a little lay-by with a stile, and then this is a straight line on the route, but in reality it's going to be a bit more zigzaggy. Again, there's not really a well-defined path. Once you get over this sort of initial convex section of the slope, and you'll see the concave section higher up, it becomes a bit more apparent, and it's like a dark kind of brown muddy scar up on this section here that you can start to head for, and there's steps in that kind of lead you up to the Grinch at the top here. So this if anyone's talking to you about the Grinch, they're referring to this hill, which is definitely something you won't forget. And yeah, and then you're back on to better paths in this section here. We've made a small section change to this section of the race compared to previous years, where when you get to the summit here, then we used to come down direct to checkpoint 2, but this ground is quite uneven and unpleasant to come down, so we're going to redirect it onto a path. So it's up to you. You could come up this track here, but you must hit the summit. If you miss this turning here, don't worry too much about it, but you must see your GPS tracker having visited the summit point there, onto that trig point. You're then going to come northeast down the off the edge of the ridge there, pick up a track, and then down to this very quiet road. You're unlikely to see any vehicles on there, but keep an eye out for it, obviously. And if you're using headphones when you get to any of the roads, please just turn off any music or podcast, whatever you're listening to, just so you can hear out for any cars, particularly as there's more electric cars on the roads these days, but aren't always as obvious. So yeah, heading south down the road here to checkpoint 2, where there will be more substantial food available to you. You can have a good restock. When you get to that point, you're probably going to be feeling pretty tired, but you've probably done the hardest part. The next section is a lot less abrupt on your legs, because it's a bit more on a plateau for a while. So you've definitely don't feel like if you get here then you're done, because the terrain does change quite significantly from this point. There's a second river crossing here, not generally as bad as the first one, so normally some stepping stones across, but again, depends on rainfall. And then straight up the hill, and then you're coming up onto this lovely section of the route where it's nice and flat once you're up on top, no huge amount of height gain or loss. Small change in the route again, like previous years we went out to this point around, so we've just it makes sense to cut this corner. So yeah, well, you can cut through up to this point. Just check you haven't got the old version of the GPX file from last year, which did mark that point there. If you want to add the extra distance, then that's fine as well. Coming down here, we then come off this path, off the Brackens Way. Again, not really a fixed path from this section to here to the checkpoint 3. But yeah, when you get there, you're going to be 35k in. Referring to the cut-off times, if I just go back to the logistics, so 4 hours is the cut-off time for checkpoint 1. This is pretty fluid, so if you're there 10 minutes after the cut-off, it's not a problem as long as you're looking strong. If you're looking like you're struggling hard, we may have a little chat with you. And the same at checkpoint 2. If you're a little bit behind, it's not really a problem as long as you're looking strong. But you'll be having to make up time to be able to meet the next checkpoint, which is checkpoint 3. And this one we will be absolute on. So if you are 1 minute past the cut-off point at checkpoint 3, yeah, so that will be 8 hours into the race. So if we're starting at 8:30, that'll be at 4:30. If you're not there at 4:30 or 8 hours, then your race is over. So you can see from this point to the end, it's still fairway and it's all up on the top here. Very inaccessible, very committing, and we need to be sure that at this point you've got enough in the tank to finish safely. So that's the rationale behind that cut-off time, and we will be very strict on it. So if you want to be able to finish, you have to be there by 4:30. And if you're not, then that's game over. There will be a bus there ready to take anyone who doesn't make it, but there will be no negotiation on that. If you're towards the back of the pack, you're planning on walking, walking quickly, then there will be back markers at the back as well, and they're also kind of keeping an eye on everybody and adding an extra layer of safety to the pack. You're welcome to chat to them, and they will advise on how you're doing and timings. But once the back marker's there, then if it's past 4:30, then that section of the race is done. From this point here, we're back onto a main road. So another hazard. This area of road is a 30-mile-an-hour limit, but cars quite often speed through faster than that. It's quite often a lot of cars parked on verges along the side of the road here, so it makes it difficult to kind of keep off the road. So take a lot of care here. Again, if you've got headphones on, just turn them off for this section. The lay-by that we're using here is generally quieter than the busier lay-bys further up the road. And then you've got the story arms here, so if you just walk along the road for a few hundred meters, cross over, and then ideally there's like a track here along the edge of the forest which is parallel to the road, and that's safer to walk along rather than walking on the road itself. And then here there's a lot of work going on recently, so the toilets should be open, but that's the only sort of stop on route where there's actual physical toilets. On the subject of toilets, obviously it's a long day, and if you're not moving quick, then it can be a really long day. So the chances are you'll need to go on the hill. If it's number one, obviously just be careful where you go. Try and keep away from rivers and streams, and please don't leave any toilet paper on the hill. So if you're using toilet paper for one or two, then make sure it's bagged up and taken with you. So maybe some kind of doggy bag to put that in. If you think you might need to, then it's worth carrying that. From this point, we're then going to be heading up the motorway of the tourist path up to Pen y Fan. If it's a sunny day, it's likely to be busy. So you'd like to see a lot of other people, probably for the first time on the route. So it's important when you get here not to cut off the corner, because again there'll be a time penalty. So you must go up to the summit of Corndy, over to Pen y Fan, and which is the highest point on the race. Over Cribben, up to Fan y Pig, and back down again. So it's quite a lot of height gain and loss. So easy on the legs. But once you're up to this point, that's pretty much most of the height gain done. Lovely views across the tops of the mountain here. Just again, be careful of these edges. Again, the paths are good, so there's no need to be right on the edge, and just give it a bit of a berth if conditions are less than favourable, particularly low visibility or any kind of strong wind. When you get around here, then it's kind of home straight now. You'll be able to see civilization again, and then you'll be coming down the hill towards checkpoint 4. Now, the whole race you'll have been using your phone or dedicated device or map and compass to navigate with, but at this point here on this little zigzag, we will put a little marker just to give you an indication of where to turn off. So this farmland is outside of access land, so we need to be very sensitive to how we operate. So don't come down this track here, carry on down, and then when you get to this slight bend, there's a small stile kind of kissing gate type thing which you can come through, and then walk diagonally through the field to another wooden stile, which then brings you on this track down to the checkpoint 4. So at this point we're 51k in, and there's only sort of 3.5, 4k left. So checkpoint here will be, just sort of some high sugary types treats and snacks and some salty ones to just really get you through this last little bit, and some water. And yeah, once you come down here, you're joining the TAF way back to the TAF trail back to Taliban. One thing to look out for here is a split in the path where you're kind of initially on the old railway line, and this section here goes uphill slightly, and the natural tendency is to want to keep flat and not have to do another hill right at the end, but this leads into private property and you can't keep going through, so you end up having to walk all the way back again. So just keep an eye out for that split. Follow that through to you join a section here by the canal, and then follow the edge of the canal, keep off the road till you get to the bridge here, and then bang straight back to the finish line at Taliban Village Hall, Henderson Hall. So that is pretty much the route. Any questions, you can reach out to us on socials, email. We'll have your more information pack sent out to you days leading up, or the week leading up to the race. So you'll have both mine and Dave's telephone number if you need to contact us. Any problems or questions, and let us know. Otherwise, see you on race day.